I almost made a terrible mistake when I was pitching my manuscript to a literary agent this week. And I want to share my experience so that you don't make that mistake. I'm learning to thrive in the gig economy. Would you like to learn too? This week was the first time I'd ever pitched my novel to a literary agent. And we got on the Zoom call. And she started talking. She asked me about the pitch. I started telling her about the novel. She cut in. She started asking questions. And she looked very serious. There was nothing glad handy about her conversation or anything. She kind of looked distracted. And I got a little flustered about that. And at one point she said, I don't think this is going to work in this genre. And I said, well, yeah, but it's not in this genre. It's, as I said, it's supposed to be in this other genre. She said, oh, yes, you're right. In this genre, it definitely works. And I thought, oh, boy, she's not really paying all that attention. And I got really nervous. I got flustered a little bit. And she started asking questions about the story that I hadn't thought about. And that made me even more flustered. And I started to get a little down. I started to get a little down on myself while I was talking to her. And then she asked me about the target audience. We talked about the target audience a little bit. And she came back to it a little bit later in the conversation. And she said, you said this grade through this grade, but I don't think that's going to work. I think it's really only this grade. And maybe a little bit younger. But that's where I think it's not going to work in these other ones. I think you're wrong about that. I said, well, you're the expert. I didn't realize the market was delineated that sharply, but you probably know about it more than I do, I'm sure. And I got really flustered. And the only time she showed any sort of spark, in a sense, was when we realized that the main character was similar to a character in a very classic story that everybody knows. And she sort of said, yes, it is similar to that, isn't it? Oh, yes. She got very excited about that point. But then she went back to sort of looking distracted, like, she couldn't wait to get this over with. And I thought, well, I've blown this. But then at the end, she said, well, you have some well thought out themes. The characters are all fleshed out. And you've got a very interesting backstory about how you came up with the idea of the book. But it's all in the execution. So send me the manuscript. And I want you to also CC this other agent in the agency because I want her to look at it as well. Thank you for taking the time. And she hung up. And I was flabbergasted because I really thought I'd blown the whole thing. Autopsying it, looking back over the questions. She wasn't distracted because she thought the story wasn't interesting. No. She wasn't distracted. She was working out in her head, okay, let me think about the market segment. Let me think who I might pitch this to. Who can we really say this relates to? What stories does this story relate to that if we needed to sell it somehow, we could say, oh, it's like this. Now I realize what she was doing. But I had gotten flustered because I was expecting her to be enthusiastic. But she wasn't. She was thoughtful. And that's the mistake I want to make sure you don't do when you're querying somebody. Whether it's about a manuscript or about anything, is we kind of forget that people who are really interested start asking questions. May not have a smile on their face because they're busy thinking about the project, thinking about the manuscript, rather than saying, oh, great job, yeah, no big deal. That's what she was doing. She was thinking about it. And if I had let my spirits down halfway through, if I had gotten discouraged, it might not have gone as well. And after I hung up with her, I realized, even though it was only supposed to be 10 minutes long, the pitch ended up being twice as long. And she had asked me to send it to another agent in her office at the same time. That's got to be a good sign that she was willing to take that much time with me. So that's why I want to say, I want to make sure you don't make this mistake. If you're pitching a manuscript, or if you're pitching a project at work, or anything like that, don't get discouraged if people start asking you a lot of questions, especially about things you hadn't thought of, because it means they're thinking about the project. They're interested in the project. That is something that you should take positively, not negatively like I almost did. If you think this is helpful at all, if this has been your experience, or if you've had a different experience, please put it down in the comments below, because I'd really appreciate hearing some feedback on it. And hit the like button and subscribe. That'd be very helpful as well. And please share this with everybody, because I think it would be helpful for other people to see it. Until next week, take care.